What if the traditional path to recovery isn't the only way? In this episode, I sit down with Chris Sullivan, owner of Mohawk Wellness Collective in Los Angeles, and he discusses his journey through addiction, sobriety, and self discovery. Chris shares what worked and what didn't during his time in AA and how he found healing beyond traditional recovery. We dive into the role of spirituality and running in his sobriety, along with the power of nature and self reflection in breaking free from destructive patterns. Whether you're in recovery, supporting a loved one, or exploring new healing perspectives, this conversation is filled with raw insights and practical wisdom. This episode is brought to you by the How We Get Through community, where the real transformation happens. Live events, daily meditations and rituals, and deep connections with people who actually get it. So hit that subscribe button so you never miss a show. And if you're ready to fully step in, join the How We Get Through community today. The link's in the show notes. Welcome back to How We Get Through, where we heal, we expand, and we get through together. Welcome back to the How We Get Through podcast. This is so exciting. We have Chris Sullivan on the show. Welcome, Chris.
Hello. Nice to see you.
You too. So I creepily founded you on TikTok,
Yeah.
because you have the most wonderful, heartfelt, real TikToks where you just walk around your neighborhood and talk about your thoughts for the day. It's great.
I started that maybe 6 months ago,
Wow.
and, it was the precipice of, like, I don't know what else to do, and, it's funny, like, I have always been, like, in some sort of, like, spiritual or, like, kind of working through, my own, like, life and, like, what I'm the type of person that just, like, processing what's going on, trying to improve, trying to change, and that's, like, from, like, traumatic influence of, like, always being bad or, like, always viewing myself as something that needs to be fixed rather than, like, okay. And, that led me to this place in my, like, midlife, middle age, where I couldn't keep it together financially. And from what I was doing, I had always owned my own businesses. I've always been able to take care of myself. And I was just going through this process in my life where I don't know if I had needed to let go of something or whatever, but the guy I was renting my apartment from owns a, like, male comedy, like, media company called Friday Beers, and it's like a Barstool Sports type, like,
Yes.
silly, immature comedy, and I was I hadn't paid my rent for months, and me and him were able to, like, have some sort of working relationship on, like, how I was gonna pay him and, like, how I was gonna get through this, and he was like, "You have to make videos, like, try to make a video every day," and, like, this whole
Wow.
thing where I introduce myself at the beginning of every video, he told me, you have to say the same thing, the first line you say, every single time. It's like something, I don't know why, it's a weird thing, but you have to do it, and I just, like, couldn't think of something, every day or whatever, so I was just like, "I'm Chris, I'm 41,
41.
and I
I
live in
live
Los
in Los
Angeles,"
Angeles.
and, like, people comment on how funny it is that I say that, but it works.
Yeah, and it's recognition, and I'm like, "Oh, there's Chris," like he's doing his
Exactly.
walk in LA. Yeah.
And as cheesy and as silly as talking to your phone is, and, like, introducing yourself every time you make something, it really, like it's been a process of, like, self-discovery for me. It's been about, leaning into aspects of myself that I deny or I've been really criticized for being. Like, I'm a tall, straight white guy, and, that has no problem talking to anyone, that's very outgoing, and that has been viewed as, like, ego and, like, as somebody who's entitled all my life, and I have put that side of me away because I've just been criticized about it so much, but when my back was against the wall and my dad had passed away, I had gone to jail, I had not paid my rent for months. My grandfather died in the same year. My uncle died in the same year.
What year is this?
This is 2023.
Okay.
So at the beginning of 2023, in March, I went to jail. And
For?
I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had been sober for 17 years, and I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and have always owned a gun in my home as protection, never carry around, always licensed, always totally, above board. But I live in a $10 million people place. Like, this is LA is dangerous.
Yeah.
People try to view LA like it's not, but it is. Like, people are going around people's homes right now and looting their homes that they have evacuated from.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
LA is one of the biggest cities in America, and it is dangerous. And if you act like it's not, you're fooling yourself. So, anyway, I digress.
Wait, Chris,
So,
real quick, what's your astrology? Do you know
I'm
your
a
moon?
Taurus sun sign, a Pisces moon, and a Gemini rising.
Okay. Got it.
Um, my Gemini is what I had to lean into to create these TikToks. This rising sign, and I'm kind of giving you the long form of like what happened to me and how this TikTok is actually really important to me personally, and not about like growth or selling something or trying to go somewhere, but it's like it's a therapeutic process for me. And it uses this aspect of myself that attracts things to me, which is like, if you embody your rising sign, you can attract what you want because that's what is your
The
gift in
external.
attraction,
Yeah.
right? So I was in AA and I was a sponsor of people, which is like a guy who takes you through the 12 steps and like kind of looks out for you and meets up with you regularly. And I had this like big, tall, gay sponsee who had a boyfriend who had this like 17-year-old Chihuahua that my sponsee hated and had to like walk and whatever. And it had ran away from him or bit him or something, and he was being really aggressive towards it. And two strangers had, this is in the middle of the night, had observed him with the dog and tried to take the dog from him, and then started chasing him, trying to like forcefully take this dog from him. And he's
Wow.
calling me over and over and over again, hoping he's near my house. And I finally pick up and I'm like, "What is going on?" And he's like, "There's men chasing me. Please let me in your house. I need help." And so I'm just like immediately waking up and um grab my gun and go outside and get him inside. I go inside of like the little entryway of my house to abide by the law, and then I tell these men to like they're 20 steps up a big step, and I go, "Get out of here. It's not safe for you here. You need to leave." And they're like, "No, give us that dog. We're coming in." And I just like I pull out my firearm and I just show them that I have a firearm and I rack around in the chamber. I make the noise like in the movies, like the chop
Yeah, like
chop, because I know that that is a scary sound for people. And I hold it and I just make the noise and I said, "You need to leave now. It's not safe." And they freak out and they run away. And I thought, great, that's
we did it.
exactly what I wanted to happen. You never point a firearm at anyone, right?
Yeah.
Unless you want to hurt them. And I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted to let them know that 2 versus 1 wasn't going to work.
Right.
So I go inside, I take my sponsee home, I go home, I think everything's fine. And then there's 12 cops at my house and they arrest me for assault with a deadly weapon because the men who were
Wow.
trying to forcefully take this dog from called the police.
Wow.
And they said I wildly pointed it at them and that I threatened to kill them. And they made this big story up because they were actually um, committing a crime
Right.
and then they called the police that their crime didn't work. And so the police arrest me for assault with a deadly weapon. And so I have to go through this process of proving that I haven't, one, haven't assaulted anyone, and that like I thought because I was in my home and people were trying to enter my home that brandishing a firearm would be, well, the appropriate thing to do. And it's just not like that here. If you point a gun at anyone in LA, even in your own home, they can press charges for assault with a deadly weapon. And
Wow.
it's just the way the laws are here that I was, gleefully unaware of, and it cost me, like, $20,000 to, like, go through court and get a lawyer and all that, and then 2 weeks later, my father passes away, my stepfather, and he'd been married to my mother for 38 years, and, it's just like a very he had Lewy bodies dementia, and when my mother came to visit me when we were going on a vacation, it was like the last time we were gonna be able to hang out before she was going into full, like, care for him. He cut his foot and bled to death by himself,
Oh my
and
gosh.
we had to rush back to Florida and, like, handle his death and, like, get the house cleaned. And then I was, had to carry my mother through her grieving process along with mine, which was a beautiful experience, to finally have some influence over the people who had influenced me so negatively.
Yeah.
And,
Full circle moment.
yeah, and, like, my grieving process was helping my mother through her grieving process, and, like, watching her change and grow and develop, and then her father passes away that year, and, like, I get to help her go through that, and, meanwhile, I'm completely going bankrupt, and, like, the businesses I've had are through the economy and this, like, pandemic things are just, like, falling apart, and I'm, like, not a conservative person, but didn't get vaccinated, so I was a photographer for many, many years, and I was working in commercials and things like that, and I had followed kind of my heart into mycology and been even as a sober guy, and, like, had turned that into a consulting business where I was building mushroom farms for a lot of wealthy people for a couple years, after the pandemic, and so I wasn't really bothered about doing photography or design or anything like that with these corporations, even though I was getting paid very well, because it was like really personal intrusion, the whole vaccination thing and how I was being treated like a pariah. And I live in this very liberal city, but I'm a critical free thinker, and like it was just like, for the last 5 years, I have been persecuted for making my own choices and like being self empowered. And I've had to, like, just man up and deal with those things and stick with my principles and be like, I don't think I broke the law, but they do, and I'll, like, play the game with them and figure this out and work through this and, like, get through this, through spirituality. Like, I started going to self-realization fellowship, and for the last, like, 7 years, I've been seeing a Jungian
Oh,
analyst,
yeah. Like
and
3 times
so
a week?
no, just twice a week or twice
Okay.
a month, and
Twice a
then
month.
once a week for many years.
Yeah. Cool.
We would do sand play and dream analysis, and then she's 92 and she's Japanese. She's amazing. She's like my
I
Yoda.
love that.
And what I realized I had done over the last 6 years is, like, replace my family members with other people that I had relationships with and heal these kind of family wounds, and I realized that a lot of the suffering from my family is from, like, my grandmas, who are these, like, Great Depression era, real big, powerful women who, unfortunately were abused and, like, really hurt and, set out these, like, chains of fear and trauma in my family that made these women in my family really critical and really, mean and made all the men in my family just bound up, alcoholic, chained,
Oh.
totally hurt, but completely controlled by women kind of men,
Wow.
and I was able to kind of put this all together with psychedelics and with really great wise, therapists, and focusing on somatics, like somatics, running, cold plunge, breathing, breath work, getting in touch with my body is the real thing. I was in AA for 17 years and have made more progress leaving AA and focusing on somatics than I could have ever accomplished sitting in rooms with people talking negatively or even positively about
Right.
how these negative impacts and blah, 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 blah. It's just like the I drank the Kool-Aid completely in 12-step. I was 22 when I got there,
What a baby.
and
Yeah.
I was controlled by a scared mother and left to the wolves of capitalism and cult thinking, group thinking, and it just the only thing I can put together now is that I have thrived in spite of 12 step, not because of it. And it's just like the more I think about it, the more negative it seems and the more like, all this stuff I just glossed over and ignored about just how misogynist and fundamentalist Christianity is just weaved throughout of it, and then, like, as I, like, went bankrupt and my life was, like, at a bottom, I realized, like, it was gonna take so much longer if I admitted again that I was sick and that I was broken, because that's not how you manifest a new reality. And I committed to, like, this more self-realization kind of way of thinking, which is I'm perfect, and I'm a body of light, and that if I can embody that and I can manifest any reality I like, and so at the summer of 2023, I was just so sad and so broken and sitting around my house and crying a lot, and I was like, "What would I do if I was wealthy and, like, everything was good?" And I'd be like, "I'd go for a run." And so I just started running, and then I realized, like, I have no friends. I have nobody in my life because I left AA, and all those people left me too.
Yeah. Very cult-like. Like, if you're out, you're out.
17 years! I gave my entire life to this fucking thing. And they don't wanna even talk to me about why I'm gone. They see me in public and they go, "Whatever works for you." And it's like, "Dude, fuck off." You know, like, oh, it's so sad.
Do you think it's similar of, like, um and I don't know if you felt this in your immediate family, but, like, there's, like, a rejection theme. Like, if you're in and you're in and you're drinking the Kool-Aid, but if you're out, you're out.
I told Sachiko is my analyst's name, and my mother are me and those 2 women are very close, and we have formed relationships where we can talk about whatever. And there was a lull in, like, what am I gonna do? And I asked both of them separately, "I think I'm gonna leave AA." And all I needed to hear was what they had to say. And they both very quickly, very effectively, very profoundly said, "I think that's a good idea." You know? And, like, that's all I needed. That's all I needed because that's who I was fucking doing it for in the first place.
And I mean, if you boil it down, like, AA is about recovery, is about finding yourself, is about finding
I
peace.
just wanted to be a good boy.
Yeah. Are
And, like,
you?
I just wanted to make these women in my life not have to worry about me and be proud of me and, like, not think I was a fucking loser. You know what I mean? And it's like, my mom and my stepdad and my father were in like, barely keeping themselves alive. Like, my mom had to put on every piece of traumatic armor she could to keep my brother and me alive, and, like, she married my stepdad so that we would have a dad, and, like, she treated him that way. She barely got along with the guy,
The
you know?
stepdad?
Oh, yeah, it was they argued and fought like cats and dogs because they just couldn't they had no idea what trauma was. They didn't know what was going on in their life, like, why they couldn't handle money or a family or their own relationships. I mean, it was just like a classic suburban home, where it's, like, poor people that got a little money that, like, just didn't know how to not be poor and not be fucked up. And, I mean, I had everything growing up. I had anything like, all my needs met. I grew up in a really middle class home. It should have been perfect. but
Yeah.
it was nowhere near, and me and my brother both fell into drugs really quickly, like
How old were
12,
you?
13,
Wow.
12. Like, we grew up in this, like, middle-class neighborhood in the suburbs of Atlanta, and every boy in that neighborhood was getting high, and, like, it was just like these it's just like a culture thing, like, late '90s, early 2000s, middle-aged people at that time, my age now, just, like, everything was like a fantasy that, like, everyone was just trying to fulfill this, like, fantasy of an ideal life that no one really was adapted to at all,
Right.
and, these millennial children suffered,
Yeah.
horrendously. I mean, like, it's insane how many dead people I know, you know? I've known like, at least 100 people that have passed away that
From
are my age,
drugs?
from drugs, just from life, and just from being completely unprepared to be an adult, you know?
Yeah.
And, just, like, the amount of stuff we've glossed over as a society, as a culture, especially in America, it's like, "What the fuck?" Like, how do you expect us not to be shooting drugs, And, like, using any tool that's available to us to, like, cope, because it wasn't our parents that gave me any kind of tools to deal with life at all except yelling.
Yeah, and I do think at a certain point there in your life, there has to be that responsibility, but you have to meet yourself where you're at. Like, I'm pissed that I didn't have the tools. I'm pissed that my parents didn't do this for me. And now as an adult, I get to take responsibility and say, I now am choosing to do things differently. I'm now choosing to find the tools and kind of like letting go a little bit of if I didn't have that, I would not have the motivation to find this other side of me. It's the pain and pleasure, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, what's happened to me, I realize now, is like a great, beautiful school that I had to go to. And like what has transpired because of it, oh, excuse me, is amazing. It's like, you know, I, at the end of 2023, I went to Hawaii with my mom and we just like maxed out credit cards and just went. And that's how we spent Christmas in 2023. Me and her were just so exhausted by life and like what had happened to both of us. We were just like, fuck this. And then we both got COVID in Hawaii and we just laid in the hotel room, laid in the ocean and just like, ugh, swallowed in how insane all of this was that we had experienced. But, I left AA and I started running and I had started going to running clubs and meeting all new friends and like making friends and I needed a job bad and I'm not employable, like I'm just not
You're
a
the
guy.
boss. Yeah.
I haven't had a job in 20 years, you know what I mean? And I've always like had my own business or done some freelance thing or whatever. I'm just not a job guy, like, and I get up at 6, and I work until 7 or 8, like, it's not that I don't wanna work. It's just, like,
I don't wanna work for someone else.
the way, the whole work for money thing or, like, time for money thing, it just never computes for me. I have I need to make money 3 different ways in the same hour,
Right.
so I can't be doing this job all whatever. But, uh I basically this new running store opened up in Echo Park, and I just volunteered my services for free. And I was like, "Listen, I'll create all your ads, I'll do photography, I'll do whatever, just, like, let me be a part of this because I was having such an issue socializing as, like, a grown adult man, and also my life was so chaotic, I was just like, "Ugh, I don't know how to make friends." So, I would just use a lot of cannabis and, like, go running and then, like, go hang out with these people and, like, provide, graphics and stuff, and then eventually, I knew they would, like, have to pay me, and so I figured, that might work, but, and then, of course, they insisted on paying me, like, the 1st month, and then it created all sorts of chaos, and I wasn't supposed to be there, but it helped me build a lot of relationships that eventually became where I'm living now, which is like this wellness center, which is initially I went to Hawaii with my mother and I thought, oh, I want to like help people. I want to empower people. I want to have somewhere people can come and get something they created for themselves and take it with them. And so I met this guy named Jacob, and we started running together and we started working on this project. And I initially wanted to do a running club out of this like house he was renting. And he wanted to do one too. And I was like, let me just make the t-shirts, I'll design something and that evolved into um this business that we're in now, which is like a house that has a sauna and a cold plunge, and we teach breathwork classes, and we use all these tools that I gained in a couple years ago through just like empowering myself, pranayama and yoga and all those things that I dived into to kind of downregulate myself and work with myself and learn from these like super negative, heavy suffering moments in my life. And it helped me transmute all that and change it into energy I could use rather than suffer from. And, it's really funny because I'd been working with mushrooms for years and
Like therapeutically or
growing them.
growing them?
I've
Okay.
just been cultivating a relationship with mycology and with this science that you know I've been taking lion's mane and cordyceps and medicinal mushrooms, and then maybe it was 2022 20 I took I thought I could be sober and like take a large dose of a psilocybin with some practitioners. And, so I did that for a while, so I was, like, microdosing, and then I took one big trip
Was that
with,
okay? Or
I
was that
don't
good?
know, it's really not specified in the program or whatever, but, as I continued to do that, and I started to, like, kind of be a little more off put by things that were occurring, and during the pandemic, I had already taken some steps away from AA because everything was on Zoom, and that seemed, like, problematic and kinda silly, and, so I was just, like, trying to find my footing, and so that put me in a good position to be like, "Do I wanna do this anymore?" And I don't know, and so it was my higher self was kind of leading me down this path the whole time, and, in the interim of working with mycology and growing mushrooms, you end up having excess, and, like, you hand them to your friends, you sell them or whatever, and, uh all these people kept showing up in my life, and I would meet them by just socializing, like going to running clubs, things like that. Well, I start working with some of these people, and then lo and behold, they'll come to my apartment weeks after we had made commitments to work together, and they realize that at some point I had already sold them mushrooms. And they were like,
Funny.
and like this connection by me just like nurturing this plant and working with this plant started to pull in my community and pull in these people that I had already affected. I had already given gifts to. I had already touched with anonymously. And it was like these connecting points through and then I needed constant confirmation that I was doing the right thing, that I was going in the right places, and it was just these beautiful way of, like, spirit just going, "Of course you're doing the right thing. This guy has been working with you unconsciously for years," and it's like,
Wow.
"Oh." And, like, as much pain and suffering as I was experiencing, I was also experiencing these deep, deep, close, like, connecting points that was just, like, give me this overwhelming sense of relief. And, like, I started to gamify my life and I started to really like use Hinduism to like comic book my life, use these gods and this kind of psychological game we all play with ourselves in like what's affecting what and pushing the buttons, and it's like, "You're creating all this stuff. Why not have fun with it?" You know? Why not make TikToks and, like, talk about insane things or nothing at all? Like, those TikToks are one take, you know? I just, like I yap it out, and then it's like, "Post it. Who gives a shit?" And what's hilarious is, like, I get no negative comments. It's all women my
It's all
age,
women.
which is perfect for me because
Exactly. They're
because
healing
what
for
I've
you. They can
actually
be.
worked through and what I've been really healing from is my mother wound,
Yeah.
you know? And I can't like, she's the last thing because I can't put her in a negative spot because she stuck with me. My dad left. You know, it's like my mother is the devouring witch, right, in Jungian terms, which is like she loves me so much that she will keep me from all the good stuff too, you know, and has. And breaking free from that without creating a monster in her is really the psychological game we're all and, like, having her allow me to influence her, having, her allow me to be the man of the family
Yeah.
now has completely fit the script, and my life is, like, rocket shipping to a new reality, like but I realize that that's not available for everyone, and everyone's not in the place that I'm in, and also, I'm crazy. Like, I am a big risk taker. I'm a big, like, who gives a shit? I don't have any kids. I don't have commitments. I have my dog, and that's it, and so, like, I'm willing to go to these places in life, you know? I could've, at any point, packed up all my shit and moved in with my mom. You know? Like, that's available. She was in Daytona, she was in a three-bedroom house. It would have completely ruined my life because I would've had to create all new communities in, like, an elderly kind of
Yeah.
zone in a place where the opportunities are just not there like they are in LA. And I had to evaluate that more than once, you know, more than once, and I'm still in a mountain of debt. You know, from people giving me money and, like, trying to control me by, like, borrowing, "Oh, I'll give you 10 grand," and then it's like this, those people won't even be my friend anymore, but they're constantly asking for the money, but, you know, it's just like this it's like, oh, codependency and, like, how it all trickles in and how people use, like, being nice and, like, giving you things and trying to help you, but really they're trying to keep you in their orbit and keep you on a leash. And it's like, you know, when you're desperate and you think like a certain number is gonna get you somewhere, you take these risks and you just kind of like now you're in this thing where it's like this person gave me something that I'm indebted to them, and now I see the truth, which is they did this for their own benefit in their, like, weird subconscious psychological thing, and it's like, if they didn't, they wouldn't really be asking for it back, or they'd be asking, like, what the deal is, I mean, "How are you doing?" You know, it's like it's so crazy.
What do you think the lesson is for you in that? What do you think's being mirrored back for you?
I'm not sure, it's like a big it's still, like, an issue for me because I'm like, "I have to pay these people back," but they won't even like, if I called them, they wouldn't answer my phone call, you know? And, like, there was a woman I dated for a while, and it's like, I went to drop off cash, and she was like, "Don't ever come to my house again." It's like, how do you want me to do this then? And it's like, it was clear in that specific area, it's like, "Oh, you did this to control me, and that backfired on you now." And now it's like I'm left with this moral dilemma. It's like I can clearly just dip, you know, but it's like I don't want to be that kind of person and I don't like that like kind of karmic effect in my life where it's just like I know that these people tried, you know, and it's just like what priority do I give them to, you know, cuz I have to survive. And it's like corporations are I don't have any problem not paying them, but you know, people are people and whether they're sick or not they try to help, and so I'm just trying to put that together and, like, be an honest, good guy about it while not, like, hurting myself in the process of, like, trying to just end something or break a connection, you know?
I'm wondering if it's a little bit like, because when you talked about the relationship with mom, like, she's, like, such a savior in some way, and there's that codependency, like, I don't have to be responsible or the be take responsibility for self if mom's gonna come and save me, and it feels similar with, like, these people. When I'm desperate, these people are gonna come in and save me, and I think the lesson is, like, I actually have to save myself, and yes, sometimes logistically, that might be ask or getting money, but I think it's more of how do I get myself out of this situation? Because I think a lot of times in relationships and just being human, we want someone to come in and be like, "I'm gonna take away all your fucking worries. I'm gonna fucking just, like, watch this wand," and money feels like that thing that can do that, you know? But it doesn't. Right? And so I think the question is like, if I keep landing myself in these relationships, like, what am I here to learn about who I am and what I am capable of?
I agree, and I think that was the process of, like, "No, I'm staying here, I'm gonna deal with my apartment, I'm gonna deal with, like, what I'm doing, I'm gonna build something new." And, like, that's the kind of process I'm in now, which is, like, I let go of everything I can let go of, and I was caught, and, like, I had this crazy dream and this, like, big face that I couldn't recognize of this older woman, and she was just like, "You're gonna have a soft landing." It was just like a floating head, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Yeah.
But it's said in such, like, an ominous term, so I couldn't, like, take it positively or negatively, you know? I was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay." And, like, I work with dream analysis and things like that, and so I take my dreams very seriously. And I'm an avid cannabis user now, so it's like, dreaming is, like, rare, you know?
So, I mean, that's a good question. What do you think of, like, I mean, being in AA and sober for
Yeah.
17 years, and then what is your relationship now with cannabis, with other drugs? What do you feel?
Well, my relationship now is like, I'm free, you know? And that there's no, like, hard lines and rules to my life. And I use cannabis regularly. I love it. It's, like, really good for me. I know that everyone's chemistry doesn't work the same way, but for me, like, when I use it, I'm a high dose user, and, like, I go run 10 miles, and
Do you smoke it and
yeah,
then run?
smoke it and I eat it, yeah.
Does how's that on your lungs?
I've been a smoker for 25 years. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I use the pouches or whatever. I have 3 big addictions. I use nicotine, caffeine, and cannabis,
But you
and
don't drink.
no, I don't drink alcohol. I haven't drank alcohol since AA. Like, I don't drink. Like, my name's Christopher Michael Sullivan, you know what I mean? And alcohol has played some role in my Irish lineage for many, many thousands of years. So it just, like, doesn't I don't wanna drink, and I'm around drink it just, like, doesn't seem like a thing that I like to do. I like using cannabis because I can function normally, I don't feel out of control, I don't make any decisions that, like, aren't good for me, and it opens me up to be more open and honest and, like, I'm living in a unnatural kind of place and, like, I experience a lot of unnatural experiences, and I have to also deal with a lot of profound suffering just around me all the time. There's people living in tents, there's people with, like, open wounds and, like, things that I'm, like, walking to work seeing, you know? And so, it's just, like, I raw dogged life for a long time, and, like, who I am spilled out in sexual relationships, it's spilled out in eating, it's spilled out in all these things that felt, like, a lot heavier to control and to, like, kind of, like, be on top of, and then when I started using cannabis, none of those things exist. You know what I mean? And it's like it directs a certain kind of energy, and it directs it away from places that it just would overspill into, you know? And I'd rather self-medicate with cannabis than take any pharmaceutical or any unnatural, and I luckily, I live like, again, everything is specific for me, Like, this is not advice
Yeah.
that I need or that I wanna give to anyone. But I don't care what anyone else has to say, And I don't listen to anyone else either. Like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm just like that type of person. But I will figure out what to do through my own discovery, right? In my own experience. And like I've had many therapists say, they never give me advice because they know I know, and this is how I process things by just like talking about it, you know?
So, like, in 10 years, if you picture yourself 10 years from now, do you feel like you'll still be, using cannabis the same way you do now?
No, but I don't think I'll be doing anything the same way I'm doing it now. I really understand my cycles now. I understand how my life works. This is the 4th giant upheaval of my life. And, like, I used to blame drugs and alcohol or, like, stinking thinking or whatever we say in that stupid thing. But it happens to my brother, it happens to my father, it happens to everyone in my family. We go through these cyclical life experiences, and what I realize now, 2024 was, like, a lot harder because I had to build everything back, right? And I had no money. So everything that I have now is through the sweat of my own personality and my own body. And that's what I had to use, you know what I mean? And, I lost my train of thought there, but what was the what we were going I know I've been
Mm-mm.
ranting
It's
here.
gone. It's
You
gone.
gave me the opportunity to
No,
be
but
on a
I can't
podcast and rant, so I did.
no.
But
Um,
I've just been using my own power, and, 2023, I started using cannabis because it's just like, why not? Like, 3 men in my family died, I was battling a court case, it was just like, what was I gonna do? I can't just, like, constantly be doing breath work in front of people to kinda, like, regulate myself, you know? And cannabis held me like a baby, and I'm a big plant medicine person, and I don't think plant medicine is just regulated to, like, every 3 months you have one experience, like, there's ayahuasca groups out there that you take ayahuasca weekly for months,
wow.
like, you use these plants, I mean, drink your tea every day, like, plants are here for us, and they're not here for us to just, like, occasionally use. Like, we're a part of the earth, you know? You have to eat every day, you have to do certain things every day, and I'm saying I'm gonna use cannabis every day, but I was definitely not gonna get down on myself and beat myself up about smoking it in the morning or every day or whatever, like, I do not care.
Which I think is an important part of using any substance is to not if you cannot demonize it, right?
Well, you have to cultivate awareness, right? You have to whether you're using drugs or not. If you're using drugs right now every day, that's okay. Like, you have to let go of the monster it is. It's like you've lived this long so far, work with it. Start leaning into like this like, Kali type stuff. Like, start lean into the suffering. Then you're making a choice, then you can control your choices. But if you're allowing yourself to just be controlled by something else, you know, even that desired thing, when you feel this pull and you're like, no, I don't want to, just do it. Just stop fighting with yourself. And happens is like you start to overcome this stuff. And that's the problem with 12 step is like it's seeped into culture in a way that makes people think this disease is incurable. This is a mental illness, it's incurable. You can't do anything about it. And that is just utter nonsense.
Which is the Christianity, like, you're born bad.
The precipice of original sin is the
Yes.
biggest misconception and lie
Yes.
that has been changed with Christianity to control people. If you're sick and tired and addicted, you're controllable, and that's what I've learned with these people giving me money and all this stuff is like, and I have I took like 8 grams of mushrooms and a little bit of MDMA and I made TikToks and I told the truth. I never posted them, but I was like, look, I was so much easily manipulated as a sober person. you could manipulate and control the shit out of me because all I was left was with my trauma reactions. I'm only left with my trauma, and with nobody to help me heal that, I am reacting to life constantly. That's all I'm doing. And so I'm just living off this idea that I'm no longer a loser because 'cause I'm not drinking or smoking crack, which I did, and, like, that's all I have to fill myself up with is I'm not a loser anymore, and it's just like, you can't create anything from that standpoint, and also, it's just it's like trying to live with your arm tied behind your back, you know? And it just doesn't make any sense. The more I stand back and it's like, "Oh, why would you take some 22-year-old kid and throw him in this place?" And it's like, "Oh, you had no other options for yourself, and you're so scared." And, like, I know so many kids that were touched and, like, abused in these places and just, like, it's just so sad. So, yeah, like, if I'm smoke cannabis every day for the rest of my life,
Mhm. So be it.
all well, you know? All well. And it's like, it's such a low stakes thing, you know? It's like, "Oh, my armpits are sweaty, I haven't smoked today." I might yell at someone, it's like, "Okay," you know?
And you weren't a runner before this. You just started running and now you're like, do you feel like you're a runner?
And I would go through cycles in my life where I'd work out and things like that. But I knew that if I was gonna take running seriously, I needed to join communities. I needed, like, friends around like, if you wanna adapt a lifestyle, you have to do the AA way, which is, like, go to the meetings and socialize and, like, have friends that are doing that thing that you can call and be like, "Hey, you going for a run?" Or whatever on those days that you just don't. I don't need everybody, like, I am totally okay just being by myself, doing my own thing. I wake up at 6 whether I gotta be somewhere or not. And it's like, I need to have shit to do.
What does stability look like in your life? And do you won't fucking hate that?
No, I mean, like, I've been praying for stability, you know, and, like, my practice as, like, just me as an individual just creates that within myself. I'm a Taurus, right? So it's like, I had to figure out how to create this safe, comfortable, okay place, no matter where I go, right? And, I have my own, like, cannabis helps with that. I am like, I can't act like I'm super regulated or like everything hasn't been in flux for me for 2 years, you know? So, again, like, that's where I see like, my cannabis use being, like, flared up, and, like, allowing me to kind of get through all this stuff, land, and, like, settle it out, and then it's like I won't want to, you know what I mean? It's like, I just do what I wanna do, right? And, like, I kind of been doing that for a long time, and I know that, like, I just won't wanna feel that way after a while, and it's like, that's the kinda, like, sad part about this, is just like, it's really that easy. It really is that easy, and,
But we make it complicated, you know?
well, we just what somatics has told me showed me is that like, there's no one else in control. There's nothing else in control, and, like, I just have to stop fighting my desires, and, like, the easiest way to quit smoking cigarettes is to gourd yourself on cigarettes,
Mm, ugh,
you know?
yeah. If you
Just
don't want
really
it.
get after it, and then see if you wanna smoke quickly,
Yeah.
It's like, no. But, you know, we don't have the time or the sacrifice in our lives to really take the time for ourselves and, like, build this awareness, build like, stop making your brain your enemy. Like, my thoughts are my friends. My mind is my friend, just like my hands. Like, when I take psychedelics, I thank my hands and my feet and, like, my body. It's really holding all of this for me. It's doing all the work, you know? And it's only these fights I have with my mind and my subconscious that, like, really causes me all this suffering. my desires, It's like that Four Noble Truths thing. It's like, how do we harmonize with our desires and stuff to like decrease the amount of suffering and stop putting so much emphasis on our shit and our stuff and like what we're healing from and it's like there's these cycles in life. And it's what I'm making TikToks about now. It's like, when is this over? Like, I just want to wake up like Sachiko, my 92-year-old Jungian and she's like, "Yeah, I do my little meditation, and I just, like, do. I just do." And I wanna get to a place where I just wake up and do, and I'm not like, "Oh, I didn't meditate, I didn't do the thing, I didn't do the thing, I didn't do my fucking 10-step process of Kundalini awakening." It's like, "Dude, chill," Like, let's just be normal. It's taking so much work for us just to get to a normal place.
But I think that's being present. That is what's being, like, attacked essentially, is you're either thinking about the future or the past, and you're not present because sometimes the present is, like, not fun or not boring or not sometimes we're, like, kind of addicted to the pain or addicted to the shadow or we have these patterns that are just so etched into our brain that you have to be really intentional. It takes a lot of work to deviate from that. And how do we love ourselves through that and be really gentle that it's not going to be our innate way to just be present, but it's the fight to do that.
Totally. Well, like, in AA, it's like I'm superstitious. It's like, like, my practice became my superstition,
Yeah,
where if I didn't do it, something bad was gonna happen.
right.
And I think we can get into like, my astrology warns me of, like, getting too heavy into spirituality, too heavy into substances and stuff because it's like I can get lost in these places, and I can join another cult. You know? And I have to realize and empower myself regularly. And it's like self-empowerment is the key. Self-realization is the key. Ram Dass talks about it all the time. He goes, "Whatever's getting you out of that trap is a trap too." And it's like, use the tool and get out of the trap. Use the tool, get out of the trap. Don't worship the gate. Go in the door, and it's like, that's the lesson with psychedelics. Don't worship the psychedelics. They're just the door, They're not the God, right? You are the ultimate I. You are God, and it's like, people just bristle with that idea. There's so much resistance to this idea that you have met no one else but yourself, and that it's like, dude, me and you are living in completely different dimensions, not just realities. Dimensions, and, like, you are a mirror of me, you know? And, like, I've just, like, taken these opportunities to embody that in my socializing, in my relationships, and just try my practice is really just trying to constantly observe what is happening in that context of mirror of I'm the only person in this world, and that all these things are just like little avenues of either love or things I hate about myself or things that just irk me. And like when I can live like that, I can live in this like Zelda type role playing game, and nothing's that big of a deal. And I become so adaptable, you know?
Yeah. It's so interesting because I feel like part of your personality is extremist of like you want to fucking go balls to the wall into everything, into the one thing to understand it. And then the work is like then peeling it back. Okay, what do I want from that? But I just feel like it's such a part of you to like immerse yourself into something so hard so quickly. So how do you love that part too and balance that out, but not demonize that, you know?
I think of life like a spectrum, you know what I mean? And, it's only your own courage that allows you to hit these more outer edges of the spectrum. And it's like, I've positioned myself in life to be able to explore the edges through not trying to domesticate, my thinking, my kind of career. People find a lot of safety and security in this, like, prepackaged understanding of like what they need to do. And then you see a lot of people rebelling with like polyamory and like all this stuff, but it seems so neocon, like neolib nonsense that like nobody really wants to explore these ways of thinking. And only like people like myself who like embody kind of this adventurous fuck it attitudes that get to really feel, I'm just here to feel. I want to feel what it has to offer and I'm willing to pay the like, "Oh, this really fucking hurts," to feel the like, "Oh, dude, did you get that? Oh my god," and just it's something to talk about for years, right? And it's like, a lot of people aren't they just can't do it, and what's beautiful is that, like, psychedelics is like that good link into understanding, like nothing you can do about it. You're gonna feel that ancient trauma breaking in your life. And then when you're out climbing a mountain and you're not on psychedelics, you get to really feel that sunset, really feel what you just accomplished by like hiking up that mountain, you know? And that's the little essence key of life that I figured out for myself. And, like, kids and, partnership would be only to exemplify or expand those experiences with them, you know? And, like, it's not the point, it's only to share.
And is that something you want to have kids?
It's not like those kind of, like, things aren't, like, desires in me, but there's something that I'd be willing and, like, happily would take on as responsibilities. Like, my dog taught me, like, that I would happily, like, embody that role, and, so that's all I'm going off of. I'm like, "Time's running out. I don't wanna be an old dad." You know what I mean? So it's like, we'll see what happens. But, it's not I don't have any, like, grand plans for my life, and, like, let it that was easy to let go of.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's a part of you. You're just like feeling all the things and going through life without an agenda.
Well, listen, my dog was given to me as a gift, and she's, like, a special like, people pay many thousands of dollars for a dog like I have. She was given to me as a gift. It was my time to have a dog, and I knew it would happen that way. I would never buy a dog. You know what I mean? I never even rescue a dog. I knew that it would just come to me. And so I see a family or a wife or something like that, it's just like how it happens. And it needs to be a woman who really wants me, that is willing to go and get me because I'm not easy to wrangle, you know? And I come from big, like I always describe my influence as like, I come from big witches, and if you got the power to fight that influence and that, stuff in me and in them, then you might be worthy. You know what I mean? But you gotta navigate that, and it's all gonna look like me being an asshole.
Yeah. And I do think there's yes. And, what I've learned about relationships as well is what I want to call in, I have to give to myself also.
Exactly. I'm a big, powerful witch too.
Right, right. There's a standard and there's a bar, but there's also like, this is what I'm willing to give someone else too. And this is what I want from them. Like this.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I didn't describe, which is like, you have access to something that I have spent years suffering cultivating. You know what I mean? Which is me. And unless you've done that for yourself, it's gonna feel like I'm the boss, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna be your coach,
right.
and I'm gonna be your guide because 'cause I'm not coming down to hang out with you. You're coming up with me.
Or is she accelerating you?
That's what I would love that. Like, I want there's plenty that I'm deficient in or need help with, like, my business partner, the reason we work is because he's not good at the things I'm good at. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Exactly.
And but that's very clear between us where we excel and where we're like a contrasting pair. And, For, like, in relationships, it's a little tougher for me because I've been taking care of myself, and I could probably cook better than you. You know what I mean? I can do things at a standard in which I like, that's pretty high. And so, like, how do you present that in a way without feeling better than them or, like, trying to make it's like dating's tough, you know? And the older you get, the tougher it gets because people are really set in how they do things. And, but I'm like, I love a challenge, and I like working through with stuff. And I'm not gonna, like, I know how to be vulnerable, because I'm not afraid of being vulnerable. There's nothing you can take from me. It's all gone.
Right. We've been through hell and back. Yeah. Go for it. Do your worst.
But there's also this, like, am I ready? I don't really have, like, I can't, like, be taking a woman out to dinner constantly and, like, really, like, courting them properly. And so do I not date? Do I date? It's like I'm not in this space yet where everything's smooth and easy and I got plenty of loot and, like, things are working out. But I did download Hinge the other day. Wait, I'll tell you why I did. It's a funny story. So I spent Christmas and New Year's with my mom in Florida. And cannabis is legal in Florida, but you have to have a medical card. And my mom lives in like a 75 and up neighborhood. Like everyone's old there. And no one smokes weed. So I thought, oh, I'm going to be here a while. I'll download a dating app and just set my preferences to only cannabis users. And I'll go on a date with someone and have them take me to the
Just
store. And, like, I'll help them buy some weed, and then
Are
they'll
you
get legal.
clear about like, "Hey, I actually don't wanna go on a date. I would like to go to a cannabis store?"
Yeah, I wrote my intentions on the thing. I knew that no one would care because I'm handsome, right? So who gives a shit, right? They get to hang out with someone. And, like, it was just to see if I could make it happen. Well, that didn't happen, and some old guy that my mom knew took me to the store anyway, and, like, he's great. I love John. He's how I wanna be when I'm 87. Just
Thanks,
getting
John.
high and hanging out playing croquet every day. And, so I just kept the Hinge on my phone and, it's a nice distraction while the world is burning, you know?
Anyone evacuated?
Yeah, so it's just like, I haven't dated in this, like, new reality of mine, and I'm really not motivated to be, like, hyper forward or, like, try to get something. And there's a lot of men and women in this community that are the same way, and, like, luckily, what I've built for myself is very attractive, wellness oriented, and, like, I somehow couldn't pay my rent in a cute little apartment in Silver Lake, but now I live in a beautiful house with all these amenities in Echo Park, you know what I mean? So, it's like as sad as it all was, I really upgraded my life,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And, how I did no fucking
No
idea.
clue.
But I just my intentions are really, like, not negative in any way, like, I just wanna be a good guy, I just wanna help people. I have so many great tools and understandings of myself that makes me really powerful at helping people. And also, like, I'm done helping people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm no
Responsibility.
longer, like, seeking out human beings to encourage or help like I did in AA. Like, I would collect human beings to sponsor, and I would be responsible for their results, and I would do all this stuff that just kept me away from my own life and kept me from engaging in aspects of life that I failed at. And so I just help more people, you know? And that kinda shit turned on me. I mean, got me arrested, right? So it's like these are the lessons that I learned about myself in my 20s and 30s that now it's like, no, I don't help people, I empower others. I empower others to get a hold of themselves so they can get a grip. Finally, for once, get a grip. Just breathe, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we can do that just by, I think with your TikToks, like just by leading, like, hey, this is the shit I'm going through right now. Like, let me know if you're doing the same thing or if that resonates. Like, it doesn't always have to be like, you have to do this one thing or I'm going to create this space for you. That's a part of it. But when we can just be ourselves, like that can also be very empowering to other people.
Well, I realized that that's all I've ever had. You know what I mean? It was like it was just who I was that helped people get sober, and it's how I disseminated the information in the Alcoholics Anonymous book that allowed them to understand it in the first place. And I never really sought people out. People always came to me, but I was very vocal in AA. I would talk at meetings all the time. I would share, I would say these I'm really good at creating mic drop kind of moments and, like, impactful speeches, and, like, I just my gift is really, like, taking complex information and putting it into practical terms. Like, I'm really good at that, and then I understand, like, why my TikTok is, like, building and growing and people resonate with it, and I just have to be conscious of, like, what my motivations are and, like, I've been really tiptoeing around the AA stuff on my TikTok because I don't wanna be abrasive or, like, bristle and use my own, like, kind of anger towards it to, like, influence others to be negative, right? And so I see some people I'm following some people on TikTok that have very clear, very succinct opinions that are right about TikTok and how misogynist it is and how it is full fundamentalist Christianism. And you cannot change a couple words in it and it'd be okay. And it
Right.
does not help people because I have seen many people pass away trying to get 12 step. And and they blame the disease when it's the solution to that is keeping that person down, and they have no alternatives.
Right. Right. There is nothing else. Yeah.
1,000 people rejoice on the grave of 1,000,000, and it's like they all go, "Look what it did for us. Look how it saved us," as they dance on their dead friends. You know what I mean? It's strange, and I it's so hard to get that perspective in it.
Right. No, that's the cult part. You gotta
So so me saying that only helps the people who are already out.
or thinking about it, thinking about getting out.
I just don't see how it's effective for the people I'm actually trying to reach, which are people in AA. So what I would like to do is to just reframe my 12-step talk into there's other solutions out there. And that there's other options out there, and they aren't as structured, and they don't have anything to do with the medical community. You know what I mean? That's the big issue is that they made it a disease, and so now capitalism is involved because our medical system is fucked, and that is the medical system unregulated, which is even more fucked. It's like the wild, wild west with rehabs and halfway houses, and you can see it on TikTok and every social media where these places are falling apart, and they're, like, just horrible avenues for deeper addictions.
And codependency. Yeah.
Oh, the codependency. That we could do a
That's
whole
it.
podcast about
I
that.
know. Yeah. Chris, well, this was so fun. I'm so glad we got to pop on here. Will you tell everybody about Mohawk Wellness Collective and
Yes,
what they
yes,
offer and where to
absolutely.
find it?
Mohawk Wellness Collective is in Echo Park. It is a wellness center that me and my friend Jacob Saladanya have started, and it is here to serve the Echo Park Silver Lake community with somatic healing. So sauna, cold plunge, breath work, sound healing, massage, trauma related massage, QHTTP, quantum hypnotherapy.
Have you done that?
Yeah, my friend is a practitioner.
Yes,
So
I've
any
also done
kind
it.
of like woo-woo therapeutic stuff, we have
I
practitioners
love it.
and people, and we're building right now. So we're just open for sauna, cold plunge, breathwork classes, and it's all communal. So part of what has really benefited me is the social aspect of somatic wellness and how making new friends and being part of a new community can be so
In
uplifting and
person.
so
Yeah.
we do co-working and different things like that. We just want people to come to the house and hang out.
Fun.
Yeah, so
Yay.
mohawkwellnesscollective.com.
Awesome.
We're on Instagram, and we're gonna start a TikTok soon. And then I guess you can
And
follow
then
me
your
on
TikTok?
Run Sully Run, where I just talk about, just a guy talking at his phone. Yeah.
If you're a lady, you'll love it.
You'll love it somehow. Also, maybe you can give me some advice before we wrap up, like, I don't understand what resonates with women in my personality.
It's a man willing to be, I think, vulnerable and process things in a world where I think women feel very connected to other women, but not connected to,
Men.
masculine men. Yeah, and not in a masculine men, but, like, it's I mean, you'll see it. You'll see it. There's other, I mean, dudes on there that are, like, spiritual and, like, in their feelings, and all the comments are like, "Oh my god, you're so blah, 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 blah,"
Uh,
because it's, like, something they see in themselves, they're
yeah.
seeing in a possible counterpart, or, "Oh, this can exist in a man? Whoa." So, I think that's what it is, and also, I think just the frequency of what you are speaking about, they can relate so much to. That it's so easy, you know?
Yeah, I get a lot of, like, "I'm going through this, I understand it," and I just assume that I'm connecting more with, like, a feminine idea, you know? And, all the people who have really helped me and supported me have been women.
I mean, you have a deep connection with women,
Absolutely.
like, past life, now, whatever, so it's easy for you, and then also what's kinda fucked up is you have a huge mother wound, and so there's this is the Gemini piece, is, like, you're constantly you're in the emotional world, and then you're, like, so hurt by the emotional world, and you really kind of balancing that out is, like, your purpose here,
Yeah,
and
my
holding that.
astrology, they call me the wounded healer.
Yes. Chiron,
Yeah.
isn't it? Chiron? The
Yeah,
one
I
with
have
wounded?
a big Chiron conjunction or something that
Okay.
makes me the wounded healer, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, 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 welcome.
So, I don't love that, I'd like to be not wounded, but I think we found, like, a really good place for the next 10 years, maybe, that, like, I can sit and, like, learn from and grow from without, like, a lot of destruction, and, you know, one thing I knew going into this is that I had not been fucking up, and, like, even though all that stuff happened and, like, I had to be a villain to my landlord and to, like, other people and things like that, which is, like, I couldn't show up the way I promised to or pay them back the way I promised to, and, like, embodying that that's okay, and that also, like, I've worked my life, all my life at, like, trying to be of service to others. And if I needed to experience this, it wasn't because, like, I created it in a way that's like, "Oh, you're such a bad guy, and you've been living this way for so many years, and you deserve to, like, have this destruction in your life." Like, I knew without a shadow of a doubt I had not been living that way, And so going through this stuff allowed and, like, "Look, man, I did not fucking make this happen." Yeah, I may have, like, created some things where it's a little bit worse, but I am not this is not my fault, and I can get through this, and it's gonna be okay, and there's a lot of people that are gonna show up in my life that are gonna support me, and that's exactly what happened, and I think that's available for anyone, because most of us are just, like, trying to be the best we can, and, yeah, we fail a lot of things, but we emphasize that failure to make us feel like losers. You know what I mean?
And then we
When
get stuck
we
there.
can't evaluate our life compartmentally and go, "Oh, I'm doing great here. I'm doing great here. Like, I can't do anything better here. And this part I need to work on, but it's all as an encompassing whole, I'm okay." You know? And I think if we can just get ourselves in a place like that, we can find real solutions. But if we're just always in the battle with the one thing, we're fucked,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly, the
So
spiral.
that's kind of what the message I wanna carry to other people, which is like, yeah, it's okay. Like, we can get through this, and it's all within us, you know?
We all got it, yeah.
All right.
Oh, Chris, I love this. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you for
And
having me. I was
yeah,
so appreciative.
yeah.
Yeah,
And we'll put all that in the show notes, your TikTok and Mohawk
yeah,
Wellness Collective.
amazing,
So, yay.
awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. If you are loving what you're hearing, give us a review up on Apple Podcasts as it helps our show grow. See you next time.